This is sick. Criticize me for the interview by all means, but Ian Dale is a Hamas lover? Give your head a shake. I've spent the last 18 months being traduced online for my support for Israel, and now I'm a Hamas lover. Just fuck off. This was Ian Dale's response to somebody calling him a Hamas lover on X, because Ian Dale is considered widely to be, one of the more pro-Israel people in mainstream media in the UK. And I don't think that's incorrect. It's just because mainstream media in the UK is 100% behind Hamas, and Ian Dale thinks that Israel has a right to defend itself, but doesn't like the fact that it does in the only way that it can, or in even a little bit of the only way that it can. Anyway, Ian Dale interviewed Natasha Hausdorff, who we've spoken about in the past on this channel, possibly the best mainstream, um, uh, let's say, pundit supporter of Israel here in the UK. Uh, I'd say if you go to the fringes in the UK, the less mainstream, maybe she has some interview
Talking
or
about.
most. Sorry, did you lose
Uh,
me then?
I think we lost you. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was saying some wonderful stuff, but if we did lose me, do you want to just go to the video and hope that
You were just saying she was one of the best.
yes, I think she is one of the best supporters of Israel in the UK in mainstream, and yeah, that means that she's going to face tough interviews, and but this one was a surprise from somebody who does claim to at least understand the need for Israel to act militarily, but again without actually supporting its military actions. Welcome to the reality show. I'm joined by Daniel and James. Do you guys have anything to say before we watch the video, or should we go into it because it is 10 minutes long? Um, and I
I
think
I
we want to watch the whole thing, right?
I can jump in with something. I mean, the way he talked about how, I'm this pro-Israeli guy and you call me pro-Hamas. It reminds me of, I don't know how guys you are into sort of like dating culture right now, but he reminds me of like a nice guy. That sort of guy like, I'm buying you flowers. I'm asking about your day. Why don't you give me a time of day? That is the sort of thing I'm getting from him. Like, just because you give the bare minimum to Israel, the fact that it's a nation that was attacked and should defend itself, doesn't mean that now you are sort of now you can just say whatever you want. When it comes to being consistent, you have to be consistent. There is not a thing that you say a few nice things about Israel and you build up this credit, and then you can say some bad things about Israel and sort of like take out the credit. That doesn't um, By that I don't mean sort of like this basically you never criticize Israel, but you criticize Israel on proper things when it comes to the fundamentals, not something like this, and we'll go into that. And when you sort of when that sort of angers you so much, I think that is also revealing. That reveals that he's not actually pro-Israeli. He's not actually fundamentally pro-Israel. It's just sort of like a nice niche to be in right now. It's I don't listen to him, so I don't know. But it's that sort of like Piers Morgan type of like being pro-Israel. Like he says, yeah, I'm okay. Maybe he's
No,
already lost it.
no, this is worse than Pierce Morgan. No, actually, I don't know. That's depending on the context, but Pierce Morgan uh, is definitely a both sides kind of person. Whereas Ian Dale is pretending to be a supporter of Israel, and we've said in the past on this channel, like some of the worst defenders of Israel are the people who make the worst arguments. And some of those are the historic and religious arguments, because no, none of you were there 2,000 years ago. You're not going back to Israel if you're Jewish and you're going and you're moving to Israel. And yeah, the Ian Dale version of yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, and then everything that Israel does to actually defend itself is wrong because of where Hamas chooses to hide among its population. But James, do you want to jump in quickly, and then we'll gonna
Well,
yeah.
He's wrong on the substance of the issue they were talking about. That is to say, the Labor MPs being chucked from Israel. And he got super thin skinned about it, as I think everyone will be able to see. I mean, he didn't call the guest did not call him or the previous guest liars, intentional deceivers. She used the softest word possible, misrepresentation or
Yeah,
mischaracterization.
but
That could be completely innocent. But to Daniel's point, he's incredibly thin-skinned because I suspect he's some kind of social metaphysician. This is a term of art for objectivists, I know. But to put it softly, he's blowing with the political winds. It's as if he has to emotionally appeal to a certain part of the audience, or he loses credibility. So I don't see any principled support for Israel here, and his claim to be a principled supporter of Israel is belied by his behavior.
all right, let's go to the video.
Natasha Hausdorff joins me, barrister specialising in international law, who's also the legal director of UK Lawyers for Israel Charitable Trust. Natasha, very good evening to you. What's your conclusion as to the rectitude of the Israeli action here?
Oh, good evening, Ian. I'm surprised by some of the hyperbole over this. It's not an issue that has anything to do with freedom of speech. These MPs can say whatever they like. They can do whatever they like. They just don't have a right to enter Israel. And individuals who consistently attack Israel, spread falsehoods about the Jewish state, one only has to look at their Twitter history. They are considered, I think properly, not to be conducive to the public good in Israel. Actually, some of the sort of baseless falsehoods about Israel that we just heard from your previous contributor, Azriel Bermond.
Hang on,
and I have to say,
he didn't utter any falsehoods. Don't insult one of your fellow guests. It's really rude.
Well, calling Israel, saying that it is no longer a democracy, or saying that it is not a democracy that can deal with criticism within the country, I'm afraid is baseless. There is great debate all the time, and indeed individuals calling for boycotts against Israel within Israel itself.
So why aren't Labour MPs allowed to do that? I mean,
All
surely
right, let's pause here because you see kind of at this point that Iain Dale seems to have gone in to this interview with kind of this intention, because he gets triggered by her saying, accusing the previous guest of falsehood. She's definitely a lawyer. You know, I would not use the word falsehood. I would use the word, you know, liar, and probably with some expletives. But yeah, you know, saying Israel is, first of all, saying Israel is not a democracy is kind of like, you know, Trump expressing support for Russia by saying Ukraine is not a democracy. I mean, Israel has an elected government that could fall at any time if one party leaves, and then there's an election. But what you can definitely say is that none of the countries around it like are democracies or have that. So. But yeah, he gets upset, and says, "Don't accuse a fellow guest of falsehoods." I mean, you're talking to people with different, you know, from different sides of a war. What are you expecting, James? You're a lawyer.
Well, actually, that happens in debates all the time. If I'm going to have a debate in the media, on radio or television, about climate change or about some aspect of health policy in my country, the one side is going to say, "Well, no, that's not the correct set of facts here. You're misrepresenting those facts." It's not saying it's very carefully not ascribing some bad intent. It's just simply saying, "I disagree with you." Now, if I disagree with you about some historical point, we're having a disagreement, and I'm saying, "No, well, that's wrong, that's false, that's a misrepresentation." I'm not accusing you of intentionally lying. She should have, as you point out, said, "The man is a GD liar. He's a propagandist. He's an anti-Semite." She could have gone all the way and really been, you know, let's put it this way, as uncivil as you can imagine, but she wasn't. She was simply saying, in effect, "I disagree." So any way of saying "I disagree" would have triggered this guy just like that. Any form of "I disagree, you've got the facts wrong," or "this is the important fact," or "that mischaracterizes the situation," that's not accusing the other person of bad faith, even when she had all the ample evidence she needed to say that guy's acting in bad faith. But that's not acting in bad faith to say you're wrong. that's false. That's a mischaracterization. That's the nicest way of debating someone when you disagree with them. And well, this is a time of war too, and he's completely obliterating that context about the whole MP situation, which we should probably get into the substance of what they're talking about. But my God, the man is thin-skinned, and if this is one of Israel's best friends in the British media, Britain is in a very sorry state. He is the one shutting down any debate. He's saying it's not debatable. My previous guest, you have to accept on faith whatever he says, and if you disagree with it, if you claim anything that he said was false or a mischaracterization, you have to be booted off, chucked off, you have to be canceled. It's not even hearing her side of the story. Eventually, he will just boot her off the show because he's absolutely intolerant of debate. He's the one.
Spoilers. But
I'm sorry, but
yeah, Britain is in a sad state. That is absolutely correct. Somebody in the chat says Piers Morgan is more pro-Israel than this guy. I don't agree, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they're both bad. Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, here's the idea. You cannot talk to dishonest people. And by that, I mean, like, you cannot have an actual conversation with them. By the virtue of being dishonest, they do not actually want to arrive at any truth. They do not want to actually come up with anything. Saying that Israel is not a democracy. When somebody says that, and, by that meaning, I mean, I don't know what he specifically meant, but usually it involves some sort of democratic process, will of the people, basically have elections in some form, right? If you say that about Israel, I mean, once you say that, what are we even discussing? It's similar to people who say that that Zelensky is a dictator because they didn't have an election. Well, they cannot have election according to their constitution. We might, have a conversation about, maybe they should change their constitution, or maybe they should change it in some way. There is a conversation maybe there, but once you start with saying Zelensky is a dictator because they don't have elections, you clearly have no interest in actually having a conversation. You clearly are just dishonest, and you just want to basically shit on Ukrainians or shit on Zelensky. And the similar thing is sort of going here. Like, they do not want to have the conversation. It's just, MPs should have been allowed to go there, and if you don't allow it, then, I will... and again, this idea of like stopping supporting Israel or anything in that regard, well, his support was on a very thin strand, if this is like what broke the camel's back. I mean, I'm a supporter of Israel, and it hasn't done anything right almost since October 7th.
Thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. Apollo Zeus says, invite Natasha Hausdorff onto the show. Yeah, we absolutely should. There are a lot of people we really want to invite, and we will, bandwidth-wise, we can't always do it as quickly as we'd like to. Speaking of bandwidth, I see people complaining about Daniel's camera, and Daniel is here in London. He's a few feet away from this office. He's here to... What?
Stop doxing me.
He's here to live stream. He's here to live stream Keith Weiner's talk, Trump's anti-American tariffs, which starts an hour after this show ends on this channel. He flew in today. He's flying in tomorrow morning. So yeah, Daniel is the hardest working producer out there, and sometimes it affects the quality of the image, but the quality of the commentary is still top notch. Let's thank you, Bronx Guy, for the super chat, and let's watch some more of this video.
Israel believes in freedom of speech, then surely it shouldn't be afraid of some of the arguments that these MPs have put forward, given that people within Israel have put the same arguments forward.
It is difficult to understand where this projection of fear arises from. Israel's statutory framework and its laws since 2017, the country's law of entry, has been very clear. I think this was also referenced by Kemi Badnoch, that Israel is to refuse entry to activists who publicly call for or have committed to participate in a boycott against Israel. And Ms. Badnoch was also right. I think the examples she was referring to were Moshe Feiglin and Geert Wilders, that this is a practice that the UK has also engaged in.
sorry, you
set
cannot
to...
equate two Labour MPs with Geert Wilders. I don't know the other gentleman that you referred to, but he was a political extremist who would have stirred up racial hatred in this country. That is not what these two MPs were. They were on a legitimate parliamentary delegation and should have been treated accordingly.
All right.
These two MPs are stirring up hatred against Israel in their Twitter feed.
Yeah, stop this guy. Thank you. Yeah, also the quality of the image of Ian Dale is affected. It looks like his face was censored, but we can live with it. Yeah, that's interesting. The way he jumps to defend the decision to ban Geert Wilders, the head of the largest party in the Netherlands at the moment, from the UK in Labour's previous government before the Conservatives won in 2010. And saying, he's here to incite racial hatred or whatever. These women went to a country in war to support the enemy of that country that you claim to be a supporter of. I don't understand how, how he gets to the point that he actually lets such things come out of his mouth and sticks with it. And if you look at his Twitter, this was 2 days ago, he is still, digging his heels in. James.
Well, it takes some nerve. I mean, given the fact that Great Britain is imposing ever more onerous censorship itself, he has the nerve to discuss free speech. I mean, is Great Britain a democracy in that sense at all? Great Britain doesn't have the proper degree of freedom of speech. How dare he? I mean, he says, how dare you compare these two? But wait a minute, Britain excludes people all the time. They have a very similar law. And by the way, Great Britain is not, the United Kingdom right now is not at war for its life like Israel is. Israel is a state at war. And he glosses completely over the fact of British censorship, British exclusion of people for their beliefs. And so in the face of the United Kingdom's policy of censorship, excluding people for their political beliefs, he has the temerity, the gall to complain about Israel kicking out two Labour MPs who are clearly anti-Semites, who are going there to criticize Israel in the conduct of an ongoing war. He is the one dropping all context about freedom of speech, freedom, the exclusion of people. I mean, it is absolutely a remarkable case of total lack of self-awareness, total blindness as to context, double standards being applied to Israel. It's disgusting in my view, because he himself is utterly blind to the United Kingdom's policy of censorship on this issue, throwing people in jail for a tweet or something, or excluding people who he doesn't like. They would come in here and start hate. Well, Israel is currently not just dealing with hate speech. Israel is dealing with hate in reality. That is to say, rockets are still coming down on them. People attacked them. They're fighting for their life in a wartime context. Now, in a wartime context, sir, would it be okay when you were fighting 80 years ago, when you were fighting the Nazis, would it be okay to exclude people from Germany while you were fighting the Nazis? Absolutely. And he's utterly dropping that context. And in fact, as I say, he's wetting his finger and putting it into the wind, judging the political winds and what's acceptable. And if that, like I say, this is Israel's friend in British media, no, he's kowtowing to anti-Semitic people. He's kowtowing in a double standard, completely unprincipled way, and then getting all righteous and morally indignant about it because she's using the softest language to say, well, that's false or that's a mischaracterization. She's not saying, as she should have and could have. That's a pack of outrageous lies, and you know better. These people are anti-Semitic, and you know it. But she didn't say that. She said, oh, that's false. That's false. That's a mischaracterization. That's a misrepresentation. The nicest way you can say I disagree. And that is really, so if there's no nice way to say I disagree, why the hell did he have her on except to pull this stunt? I think this whole interview was just a stunt on his part to pull this whole dramatic thing so he could gain credibility with his own critics, insofar as he has been a supporter, I put it in air quotes, of Israel.
Yeah, that does it does appear like something that he was preparing to do. And yeah, if you are a supporter of Israel, if you are upset by anything she says there, it would be that she's using soft words like falsehoods rather than. But yeah, she is, like I said, she's a British lawyer, so she's extra polite. Daniel, your thoughts?
Well, I have to say, before you go to Daniel, my wife and I were listening to this interview yesterday. We were actually listening to it. My wife had to turn to me and say, "Well, why is he getting so upset? She's being so nice and civil." Of course, she's a British lawyer. Of course, she's going to be just as nice and polite as you could possibly be. But that was simply not, you can't disagree with this guy. He'd set her up in the most outrageous and dishonest way possible. I'm sorry. Just had to throw that in.
Yeah, and there is this, and people should be really careful about this. I don't know if he's committing that, but there is this idea of sort of like trying to both side a bit too hard, and it's something you can sort of suffer from when sort of you have been, and I'm trying to be not guilty of that. I hate Trump, and I think Trump is terrible, but I think sometimes, when you try to both side a bit too much, you can sort of you might stop yourself from criticizing certain aspects of somebody because you wanna seem like you're not like pointing somebody out. And so in this scenario, it sort of comes out as this: look, I'm not just like pro-Israeli guy. Like when they do something bad, I'll actually like speak out against that. And that's the sort of like the feeling I'm getting, that it's this like easy thing I can like get on and have this. I mean, it's pretty much everything Piers Morgan does, right? It's always, look, I'm actually the objective one because I criticize both sides equally. When you see somebody murdering someone and somebody, giving you wrong change, that's not the same kind of like depravity that you have to say, well, yes, he did murder someone, but also this guy did give him wrong change. We have to be equal. No, being both siding properly or being equal properly means you give it the sort of the moral attention, you give it the attention that it deserves, appropriate to the amount of evil or to the amount of effect it has. So and this is not what we're getting from this guy. Not to mention, just one more thing, even when it comes to well, the point I'm going to make, I think we'll hear about it a bit in a
All
bit.
right, before we go to the rest of the clip, first of all, the reaction in the UK to this has been, to me, so even within what I know about how this country looks at the war, surprising, to the point that I still think some of the reactions will get more episodes on this channel. It would be even more if it wasn't for the fact that those supposed medics were killed in that gunfight, and we're now being told that Israel intentionally murdered them. But let's go to the super chats and then to the rest of the clip, the interview. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Dan, welcome to Londonistan. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says they were not legit and it's good they got deported. They didn't get deported. That's the thing. Even though, like I said on the Daily Objective, when I looked for Gaza deportation, for some reason this showed up as most of the news story. They were denied entry. They weren't, they didn't immigrate to Israel, live there, and then protest against it, and then get deported. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, Razi, Lamy needs to respect is Israel's right to deny people who are seeking entry for dubious reasons. Yes, but I have zero expectation of David Lammy on anything. If he ever does anything good, I'm sure it's an accident and he'll fix it quickly. All right, let's go to the rest of the interview.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly on the deportation, because I guess technically you could call that deportation. Technically deportation is sort of removing somebody from your country. So basically, they came in and they said, "No, we will not allow you to entry. We'll pay
Let's
for
ask
your
the
tickets."
lawyer.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
pay for your tickets back. Bye bye.
Yeah, it's not deportation when someone gets removed from the country who's just there temporarily visiting, or even on an official diplomatic mission, which this was not, as we'll get into, I think, when we see the more of the interview. But no, This is the execution of standard laws that I think nearly every country, at least on this globe, has.
All right, let's continue with the interview.
No,
And
they're not. They're arguing their case in a democracy.
May I answer? Ian, may I answer? They're not. They are spreading falsehoods about Israel and calling for a boycott, which is why they fall
Well, then argue against
to
them.
this issue. But forgive me, may I also correct another aspect of what you have said? They were not on an official parliamentary delegation to Israel. They have been clear that they were on a delegation that was organised by the Council for British Understanding, an anti-Israel lobby group, and Medical Aid for Palestinians, which incidentally only stopped funding a designated organisation when UK Lawyers for Israel complained to the Charities Commission about their links to terror. So these two very questionable organisations, so far as Israel is concerned, organised a delegation, it seems, with these two members of parliament to the West Bank. There was no record of a parliamentary delegation to Israel. So the overriding issue is here. When immigration officials ask for information as to the purpose of your visit, and you provide information which is not correct, that in most circumstances will put you straight on the next plane home. So quite apart from the hyperbole here, which is causing a diplomatic incident, everything that you have repeated from Labour members of Parliament and even ministers calling this out, and ignoring the sheer hypocrisy, which is pretty staggering.
All right,
considering
let's pause here.
that this is
Let's pause here for a second, because that's so good. I mean, she actually explains, look, this official delegation was not an official delegation, organized by the two governments of the countries. This was two organizations, one of which was funding terrorists until Natasha's organization intervened. She is basically giving him the facts of why Israel absolutely did the right thing here, and he's sitting there quietly at this moment, probably waiting for the next time he hears a word like falsehoods, and can jump on it, even if he knows that falsehoods is absolutely the correct term to use. James.
Yeah, these people are supporters of the terrorists. These people are enemies of Israel. Israel is at war. This was not an official diplomatic delegation sent by the prime minister, organized by the two governments. To equate the two is wrong. They're not ministers of the crown. They're just absurd. These two anti-Semitic, anti-Israel supporters and funders of terrorism lied, and then she pointed out, lied on their application to come into Israel in the first place. Whether or not a country is at war, they will, that, as she points out, that in nearly every country on the globe, under their laws, that will get you booted from the country. You lied on the application to enter the country. By itself, that will get you shown the door. But it further ignores the wider context of A, Israel is at war, and B, these two people are active supporters of the terrorists. So how much context is he dropping here, and how much context of truth is she infusing in and of course she is in the mildest way once more to say, look, this is false what you're saying, this mischaracterizes it, this misrepresents it. Those are the nicest ways of calling bullshit on someone you can possibly imagine, and she's doing it the nice way, citing facts. These people lied about why they were coming in. These people have supported the terrorists through this organization. And by the way, we're a country at war, and UK, guess what? You do the same thing, as does most of the countries on this planet. And you're not even at war, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Come on.
Yeah, by the way, when she mentioned Wilders, she also mentioned Moshe Feiglin, who's been on this channel twice, and yeah, was a member of the Israeli parliament and was not allowed into the UK. So he doesn't have a problem with it on principle. He has a problem with it when it's Israel at war and the MPs want to help the enemy. Oh, Daniel, okay, there's a few comments, but you go ahead and I'll then go to the comments.
Well, if there are comments about my hair, you can read those out.
That's not what I was going to read. I was going to read that Zara says, Dale is so rude. He doesn't like very clever women. And I, kind of wondered when I was watching that. And I don't like that typically because, this is the kind of accusation you would hear if it was the other way around, right? If it was, somebody from, you know, a woman from the left, or certainly a woman from the pro-Palestinian side, being interrupted when she says the Israeli side is misrepresenting. Yeah, we would hear this is a woman thing. And then Zara also says LBC is an enemy of Israel. And yeah, it does seem like that. I mean, again, Ian Dale is maybe one of the least bad ones, but there's what's his name, O'Brien or something, not Patriot O'Brien uh, from the Ayn Rand Center UK mock trials, but there's an O'Brien on that channel who I think is very anti-Israel. But yes, Daniel.
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's a few more things. I mean, something important to mention is these MPs, if they wanted to, they had the chance to actually argue this in Israeli courts about if they should be let in or not. And they, of course, denied that. They didn't want that. I think they had an option to sort of maybe even stay for a bit longer to sort of go through the process. They didn't want that because they already got their thing. They already got the fact that they got denied, and now they can go back home and happy. Now, when it comes to, I'll let you, James, in a second. When it comes to sort of, you know, even when it comes to the immigration, whenever people start talking about a nation has a right to deny access or something like that, I start sort of like disliking it, because I think the biggest thing that should be focused is the sort of the individual interaction, is the fact that, you know, when let's say I want to invite somebody in my house from a different country, right? For a government to step in and trying to go into that interaction, I think that already you're starting to go maybe a bit wrong. But you know, that can be talked about on the sort of more sort of abstract level. But this is not what we're talking about. She's a representative of government that cannot be denied. And they're not going there for some sort of individual business, which even then, to what extent can you even say? I think that's how our politicians went to Moscow. Actually, they said that my politician, meaning Slovakia, they said that they were actually their own personal business. So you know, they're not actually visiting an enemy state. They're just, you know, there for a vacation. But you know, I think when you deal with sort of government and government representatives of the nation, I think at that point it is completely different standard. You're no longer talking about this sort of personal interaction that I've talked about when it comes to individual. I think absolutely, probably most of the Labour Party might as well be made persona non grata. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, America should make pretty much all of the UN persona non grata, and then say like, you got 10 seconds to get out of my property, and basically, you know, start shooting after that.
Well, yeah, this looks like theater on theater on theater. The whole visit by the two Labour MPs looks like it was designed to create this moment. And then you add to it the theater that we saw on the floor of the House between members of Parliament. And then, of course, you have this radio interview. So it's theatrics upon theatrics upon theatrics, all designed to make Israel look bad. Israel is at war. Israel is at war. Hostile politicians from a foreign government were coming in, lied about their reason to come in. You almost think that it was designed for them to get this, to get the boot, to make it look like Israel is the one censoring free speech, when Great Britain does precisely the same thing with much less excuse, as far as I'm concerned. They're not at war, as Israel is at war for their survival. So what strikes me is that this entire thing is just theater upon theater, just to make a show. So it's totally insincere from step one to step three here.
Yeah, just quickly, WUB, yes, O'Brien was a Nazi on Seinfeld. That's how we came up. James last minute suggested the name before the last ARC UK mock trial. The guy on LBC, you know what? I temporarily take back, because I don't actually like listen to his stuff enough to say anything, and I'll leave talking out of one's ass to the other side. Let's listen to the rest of the interview.
Is the sort of legislative framework that the UK also has, and has not infrequently adopted, against those that are not considered to be conducive to the public good.
And if they were going to Israel to stir up hatred or support Palestinian terrorists or whatever, I would have absolutely no problem with the Israeli state deciding they were not conducive to the public good. But that is not the case here. Now, you are correct when you say that the Foreign Office website gives advice to, and I've got the page up here on my laptop, it gives advice to, it says foreign nationals can legally be refused entry if they've publicly called for a boycott of Israel or Israeli settlements or belong to an organisation which has called for a boycott. So from that point of view, Israel can say, well, we've warned people in the past about this, the Foreign Office website states it, so therefore fair dues. But no normal democracy behaves in this way, do they? I mean, name another country that does.
It's the United Kingdom.
No, it doesn't.
The leader of the opposition gave you two prominent examples of politicians
Yes,
that were
and I've told
refused
you
entry.
that in one of those cases, the example doesn't really work.
Well, I would disagree, because the nature of the conduct of these two members of parliament, and unfortunately they are not alone in the Labour Party, in targeting Israel, in singling it out for falsehoods and a public smear campaign, falls very much within the confines of not conducive to the public good in Israel, which is exactly what this statute was introduced to cater for. And it is important to understand that they represented something that was untrue to immigration officials when they claim to be on a parliamentary delegation in Israel. That is information that can be easily checked.
It can
was
be, and
checked.
they were. The
those
Council for Arab-British Understanding said
Yes.
that the women were part of a parliamentary delegation on a trip organised by them and medical aid for Palestinians.
So I did just address this, Iain, but perhaps it was missed. They were not on a parliamentary delegation to Israel.
Well, they were. Well, to get to the occupied territories, you have to go through Israel. Am I not right?
Well, let's be clear.
All right, okay.
This was not an organized.
Yeah, okay. So Iain Dale there, lies on their behalf several times. First of all, no democracy would ever do this. I mean, first of all, democracy, the issue with it is it's a majority rule. So, as long as it's a majority rule, yes, democracies can do these things. James, James, I see that you want to say something. Go ahead. I have something.
Perhaps you missed it, she said. Now she could have right there said, look, you idiot, I just told you the facts. These guys these Labour MPs are supporters of enemies of Israel. They were part of a group that was identified, and they lied on for the reasons why they're coming in. And then he comes up with this, but to get to the occupied territories, you have to go through Israel, right? Well, Israel's at war, buddy. And you don't even make that distinction. Now, these people weren't coming in, Mr. Wilders and Feiglin, they weren't coming in to do violence. They were coming in to speak into the United Kingdom. United Kingdom is currently not at war. If anything, she has a stronger counterexample than the current context that we're talking about here, where these are people who've supported organizations that support terrorism. And Israel is currently at war. So he gave no factual justification to say, he says, well, your example, I showed you that one of them wasn't a good comparison. No, she's making a far stronger comparison, a far stronger comparison to anyone with any rational context here as to what's going on.
Yeah, and again, the amazing thing is he does argue, oh, this is an official delegation, and then when she replies, he says, well, to go to the occupied territory. So okay, first of all, you use their language. Second of all, you are saying, okay, it wasn't an official delegation to Israel. Israel was not was not a part of this in any way, and so yeah, he does contradict himself and his own arguments in his attempts to disprove hers, and I think it makes him look even worse, and we're going to see him looking even worse as it goes on. Daniel.
Yeah, and also this is the state of the matter, is the fact that, yeah, if you want to go to the Palestinian territories, you have to sort of coordinate with Israeli authorities. That's the fact. They didn't do that. Why? why didn't they do that? Either they knew they would be rejected, I think rightfully so, or they again wanted a story out of this. But you cannot say like they knew what was going to happen. It's and you know, I mean the fact that this exact thing happened the other way around, the fact that somebody like Moshe Feiglin was again, I'm not even 100% sure if he was denied access on entry or he was just banned from coming in and still is banned from coming in, which again, he is somebody who is at the exact same thing. He was an elected official. He was at the time, I think in like late 2000s, early 2010s, he was not only he was part of the Knesset, he was part of the Likud. He was a part of the governing party. I think Netanyahu was back then in power. So again, and they banned him just for nothing. He doesn't even want to go there. I mean, at this point, well, I guess I'm here, so I want to go here.
Yeah,
But yeah, he was denied access for the exact same thing. And yeah, I think Moshe Feiglin actually came out at this with the article and said that he sort of understands it from both sides, and he's calling UK hypocritical. That yeah, a nation should sort of have this control. And yeah, even if you go, I think the reason for that other guy, I can't remember his name, who was denied access. Basically, it was because he would stir up racial hatred, which is a actual part of the UK law. I think it came into law in like actually early 80s or 90s or something like that. But yeah, basically you can go to jail, you can go to prison, you can get denied access if you have intention to stir up racial hatred. And actually this has been a big story in the past because one woman actually went to jail or prison rather because she was sentenced for a tweet. And the reasoning was that her tweet, her tweet was pretty bad. But according to law, it was basically that it was intended to stir up racial hatred, and that was enough to convict her. Well, technically, she did. She did actually. What do you call that? She basically admitted to it. But the whole reason she was on trial was because of that.
Well, racist and hate speech should be allowed. What kind of democracy? I'll use his language. What kind of democracy censors mere speech? And when we're on the topic of stirring up racial hatred, can you name a Palestinian group or organization that is not the worst in the world about stirring up racial hatred? They're explicitly anti-Semitic. They're explicitly racial haters. And they're going, these two MPs are going there to support the worst racial stirrers of racial hatred on the planet. He is so blind that he misses his thorough hypocrisy here, and that is always a sign that the man is not principled. He's not thinking it through. He's emoting. He's emoting for some kind of popular attention and support, and to appeal to or appease some segment of his listening audience. My friends in the United Kingdom, I love your country. I love your culture. I love visiting there. But anti-Semitism has been a long-standing problem in your country. Your lack of support for Israel has been despicable, and has helped and I know you didn't perpetrate October 7th, my British friends, but you guys have been behind a foreign policy that allowed October 7th to happen. Because you got this stirring up racial hatred thing all twisted in your head. Free speech is free speech. Hate speech is hate speech. Israel right now is fighting for its life in a war. And no more than you would allow members of the German legislature into your country during World War II. And I'm going to be just that frank about it. Should these people who are active supporters of terrorism, be allowed entry into Israel right now? Too bad if it's British members of parliament. You excluded a member of the Israeli Knesset, and you weren't even at war. So, I mean, talk about not looking in the mirror. Talk about total self-blindness. I mean, it boggles the imagination, this guy's detachment from reality and hypocrisy.
Yeah, and that's important to reiterate. Active supporters of terrorism. Remember, they want to go right now because a year and a half ago, the Palestinians started a war against Israel, and ever since then, they have decided to continue this war because Israel does have a standing offer that I object to the Palestinians to surrender and release all the hostages, and then it's over. And they refuse. They refuse. So every single shot fired by an Israeli gun, tank, bomb dropped from a plane is fired right after another moment where the Palestinians decide that this war needs to continue, and these MPs went to Israel to support that war effort against Israel, and Israel generously said, go away rather than here's a cell. PC said both Robert Spencer and David Wood were banned for no reason from the UK. I don't know David Wood, but Robert Spencer has been on this channel. So another person banned from the UK has been on Ayn Rand Center UK. If I was as full of myself as Pierce Morgan is, I would rename this show Uncensored. But anyway, let's not censor Iain Dale and let him continue on his rant.
Organization, CABU, an anti-Israel lobby group that had made any preparations, it seems, on the ground in Israel, or any attempt to arrange a parliamentary delegation in the country in which these two MPs were arriving. So on every level here, the response can have only been expected. One almost wonders whether this whole exercise has been with every expectation of the result as another PR stunt and to create a diplomatic incident. Because let's be clear, the organisers
Well, again,
of
a
this
disgraceful
so-called
allegation with no
delegation,
proof at all.
well, let's be clear that the organisers of this so-called delegation, CABU, and Medical Aid for Palestinians, have a very thorough track record of anti-Israel activity and have no, and plainly on this occasion, had no preparations on the ground. This was not a parliamentary delegation to Israel.
Can I ask you a question? In that I've been very supportive. I've been very supportive
Actually,
of Israel since October.
Let's pause before he tells us how supportive he has been of Israel, because it's interesting when she brings up the possibility that this is a PR stunt. She says one has to wonder. She prefaces it with one has to wonder, and then he says, "Well, there's no proof at all." And she doesn't claim that there's proof. She provides some things that might make you consider whether this is a possibility. But he is clearly upset and taking a side, and of course at the end he wants to tell us that he's pro-Israel. But we see the rest of the interview. Should have posted just that part, and then maybe it would have been believable that you are a supporter of Israel, but you clearly are not. James.
When members of parliament from one country are visiting another country and they're critical of Israel, obviously it is designed for the publicity in one way or another. Even had they not been booted from the country, it was a publicity event. It was a PR event. And when you put it in the wider context, they had to know. They had to absolutely know that there was a good chance that they would be at least booted from the country. So the circumstantial evidence, is the way we lawyers would put it, is really behind her on this. It looks to me like a theatrical stunt, and just as this interview looks to me like it's theater that he's designed. The previous guest that he'd had on that they keep referencing was a complete anti-Semite enemy of Israel. She's simply responding, and she's the one getting dumped on here. He's got to put all his ire against her when she's being perfectly civil. One must wonder. I mean, my God, again, to my wife, it's so civilized. She's saying, could you even tell there was a disagreement with the language she was using? No, he's jumping on her despite her being completely rational, civil. She's simply saying, I disagree with you. This looks like a PR stunt to me. And then here she is being victimized by a PR stunt, the completion of the PR stunt that this interviewer is involved in. Now, of course, he's going to go on to boast about how strongly he supports Israel. He needs to right now. He's all out of facts. She's completely contradicted him. She's cornered him logically and factually. There's no wiggle room for him left. So what is he left to say? Well, compared to other British media outlets, I'm pro-Israel, relatively pro-Israel. That's his last stand, is to defend his own character on the issue desperately and pretty meaninglessly, if you ask me.
Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, he's such a nice guy. I bet he won't even beat up his, girlfriend when he gets one. That's, really happy for that. Um, yeah, I mean, well, just
Daniel, can you not get arrested in the 5 hours you have left in the UK?
I'm
Defamation
running
or
out.
anything?
I need to, spend the time, I call it Operation Flash, so they won't catch me in time. Uh, but yeah, I mean, not much to add on this point, although I do like sort of Natasha's way of handling this. Although, if we're honest, when you have like a conversation like this, and when you tell someone, maybe I didn't make myself clear, or maybe you haven't heard, you are basically implying, if you actually fucking listen to me, maybe you can actually hear what I'm saying. That is sort of like a lawyer speech of that, or sort of like a nice way of saying that other part.
I thought she was being generous there as well, because it's maybe you didn't hear it, is maybe you're not being dishonest and heard it and are pretending it wasn't said. All right, let's hopefully make it through whatever we have left. Yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
7th, but various things that they've done, certainly in the last 6 months, I have called them out on air. I think some of the attacks in Gaza have been totally over the top. I think Benjamin Netanyahu himself has been very culpable for a lot of this. Would that mean that if I decided I wanted to go and present a program from Israel, that I could be refused entry because I've had the temerity to say something that the Israeli government might not like?
That is, I'm afraid, a misrepresentation of what has gone on here.
Do you know
There is a
what?
difference
Do you know what?
between.
I've had enough of you repeatedly accusing my guest of misrepresentation, and now you've done it to me twice. You don't get a third chance.
Iain, I have offered over the last 15 months repeatedly to come on to address the concerns that you are raising, and that offer has been refused.
No, it's not.
So
You've been on my programme before in the studio.
Right. Not to address the issues that you have claimed to have concerns about with respect to Israel's military conduct on the ground in Gaza. Any individual who wishes to properly understand the situation has the ability to do that and engage with experts, those like me that have been on the ground in Gaza in September and have seen these situations with my own eyes. Those repeated offers have been refused, and all I have had in coming on and answering your questions straightforwardly, as I've been invited on to, is being told that I'm in some way being rude because I disagree with your previous guest and with you. I'm very surprised.
You can disagree, but you don't accuse fellow guests of misrepresentation, and you don't accuse the host of the programme of what you have done, because if you do, don't expect to be invited back.
But Iain, the comparison that you have just drawn is not a fair comparison, and it is misrepresentative of what these members of Parliament have done.
Okay, you've done it 3 times now. Goodbye. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. 7:24.
All right. Wow. What a piece of shit. And it really comes out at the end what a piece of shit this guy is. That you can disagree, but you can't actually say anything that disagrees. It's kind of like, I support Israel's right to defend itself, but if Hamas kills 1,200 of your people, takes 250 hostages, and then hides in a hospital, you can't do anything, or you're the bad guys. Yeah, as the title says, with friends like these, Israel really isn't missing any enemies, because yeah, this is not a supporter of Israel, and him pretending to be one is, we could say maybe that's a PR stunt of the Palestinian side.
Yes, he will brook no disagreement. He will tolerate no contradiction. He is not there to have an open and honest debate. This man is not helping his audience understand the issue at all. He's shutting down any disagreement. Now, of course, that's not censorship. He has his show. He can treat someone rudely, close them down, all he wants. It's still not censorship. But don't pretend to yourself, sir, that, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. No, to you, sir, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. You cannot hear any facts that might contradict your position. And in the same breath of saying, I've been a supporter of Israel, he then goes on to say, Netanyahu's attacks have been over the top. Well, sir, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. You are unwilling, probably because you can't confront the facts about the situation on the ground there, to have her on the program to discuss your allegations. She nailed him on that just ruthlessly and correctly, however, because this guy will brook no disagreement with his criticism of Israel. It is an axiomatic, religious, dogmatic fact. This guy may as well be, a medieval religious mentality on the topic. He does not want to hear any facts that contradict his version of reality, which is a twisted anti-Israel view catering to an anti-Semitic population, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Now, when she said about what he said, that's a misrepresentation when he was dishonestly suggesting that anybody who disagrees with anything Israel does can never be allowed into Israel. Of course, it contradicts something he earlier said, which is he was talking about how the fact that, oh, they just said things that people in Israel said. So yeah, these are MPs who chose to go to a country without announcing, chose to go there with the intention of supporting the enemy of that country that launched a war against it. Israel wasn't too keen, sent them away, and now he is defending those pro-jihadist MPs. That's who you are, Iain Dale. You are pro-jihadist in effect with that interview, regardless of if you paid lip service to Israel has a right to defend itself. Daniel.
When you want to have a discussion or a debate with any person, you need to share some values. You need to share something that you can connect and then move on from there. When you argue with people who are, even call them pro-Palestinian, what values are we really sharing? For me, it's like arguing with like Nazi apologists. Like I cannot connect with you on any level. I cannot see any reason why you're there. I cannot see, because when it comes to Palestinians, anybody who is even pro-Palestinian, they don't have any expectations of them. Nobody's expecting them to establish a liberal democracy. Nobody is expecting them to sort of honor even the agreements with Israel. Nobody is expecting them to do anything. So what am I supposed to say with people like that? And sort of like similar here, when you even when he says sort of he invites people on, or when Piers Morgan does his shows, for people who watch it, it's mostly entertainment. There's obviously nothing is being done that there is nothing you can come up to in agreement with people who are pro-Palestinian, which most likely in effect is pro-Hamas, and people who are pro-Israeli even nominally.
So we can't really go over time today because in an hour on this channel, Trump's anti-American tariffs, a live lecture by economist Keith Weiner, CEO and president and founder of Monetary Metals, is happening, which we need to prepare for. Tomorrow, on the reality show, we might do something on this topic as well, and an interview with Emily Thornberry that I saw earlier. Emily Thornberry is the former shadow foreign secretary under Jeremy Corbyn. And it's interesting the line she took. I mean, one thing that I saw in that interview is that she kept referring to them as these two young women. So it is interesting how the framing of the different defenders of these Hamas supporters in different contexts. Thank you, PC, for the last minute super chat. PC says, James, I shut down pro-Hamas trolls on Facebook daily. Too silly or nasty comments, get them blocked under my rules. LOL. And thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. Apollo says, come on the show, Natasha, please. Yes, absolutely. We will reach out to Natasha to be on the show. James, where can people find more from you?
Here at Ayn Rand Center UK. I do all kinds of stuff now. So for a lot of that, you have to be a paid member. And it depends on the level of your membership. But if you're interested in what I have to say about philosophy or history, this is the best place to find me, folks. Ayn Rand Center UK. If you're not a subscriber, please consider becoming a paid subscriber to Ayn Rand Center UK. You'll get a perspective that you won't get anywhere else, I promise. Certainly not in the United Kingdom. So here. All I can say is that we are a rare voice, and you can, from this, if this guy's a pro-Israel guy, this channel, Ayn Rand Center UK, is the place where you'll find an actual moral defense of Israel. And I'm not sure that there are any other places quite like this, certainly not in the United Kingdom, as much as I love the country.
And Daniel, where can people find more from you?
My YouTube channel, Damned Dan. Some people have trouble spelling it. It's DAMNED, as in damned, like in hell. It's actually somebody from Ayn Rand novels, and for people who know where it's from, they should. For people who don't know, they should read more of Ayn Rand fiction.
I am as triggered as Ian Dale, so I'm going to reply to a comment here in the chat that says these women aren't even British. Yes, they are. They are British women, and yeah, you don't have to be born in this country to be British. So they're British women, and it doesn't matter. They're individuals who made a choice to support Hamas, and we should judge them on that and not on where they were born. Thanks,
Yeah, and it's
Daniel.
not like
Thanks.
people actually born in Britain are any better when it comes to Israel and Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a Seinfeld reference there that James and I were talking yesterday, and I can't get it out of my head. I thought I was getting advice from a Chinese woman, but anyway, people who get it get it. People who don't, watch Seinfeld. You have 55 minutes. We'll be back here with Keith Weiner. We'll see you then.
Be safe.